Hello! And welcome to Morningstar and Company Incorporated, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition actual play live broadcast. I am DMF Saint. I will be your Sherpa and DM this evening. Below me are the members of Morningstar and Company Incorporated. Let's go around the horn and introduce the viewers to all the players and tell everybody who you're playing today.
All right, hi, I am Chum Nation here on the internet. I'm playing Varys Selvarin, a High Elf Warlock. And I also play Mistral, his trusty sidekick. She doesn't say much, though, so it's a pretty easy character to play. And yeah, stuck in the Abyss currently, and hopefully we can teach Delg not to drool all over himself pretty soon. All right. Joe?
Maybe. Hey, I'm Joe. Here as Ragnus Stubby, the tiefling sorcerer. Yeah, I don't know. Got a cool new sword, and I'm ready to see what it can do.
I'm Akechi. You can find me on Twitch at Akechi. And I play Delg, the stone-shaping, tree-jumping, god-praying, not knowing what the fuck he is now. Nature cleric.
Sure would be a shame if the guy with the wish and feeble mind happened to realize that he had both of those things.
God. Oh, God.
Look, and I can't cast or use magical spells, so it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God. Thank God. Hello, I'm Osiris Franco. I'm playing Cascade Traylon, the Water Genasi Wizard, and I'm very excited to be here. You can find me at Osiris Franco in all the places.
Hello, I am Ash. I go by Ash and Rabbit here on Twitch and Twitter. I play Hope, the Furbolg Life Cleric, and like every week, I am terrified.
Why terrified this week?
My buddy.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
He's not doing great right now.
Also, weird shit.
Yeah, super weird stuff.
I mean, that could be worse.
Really, could you, though?
I have 73 HP still.
Fair.
It'll be fine.
That is fair. So, in the last session, the party, finding their way from the infinite staircase into the abyss, out of the cave to the barren landscape that stretched on for miles and miles in pretty much every direction, they set out towards a mountain range that Ragnus had determined would be the most likely source of any river or water, which Ceylon, their untrustworthy, cowardly guide, has told them they need to find in order to make their way to Vanillon, a city, as he described it, near the entrance to the Abyss, where there is, he says, a gateway from the Abyss and a shortcut back to Waterdeep, the hometown or home realm of Hope and Ragnus. Along the way, the party, finding the river, also discovered a strange ritual of sorts happening. But before that, a mysterious stranger on a bridge stared at them, pointed, and opened a portal to teleport them to their destination. Back to the ritual. Along the river Styx, a giant hand sculpture with several pillars surrounding it was the backdrop of a number of creatures casting some sort of summoning ritual, which the party decided they needed to stop. And shortly after engaging the creatures, a man appeared, dressed in very stylishly elegant clothes, glowing blue eyes, who proceeded to do some very bad things to the party, and was very cocksure and very much an asshole. Just before bamfing out of existence, he did cast one last magic spell on Delg, who is now feeble-minded. He also, in a very odd moment, gave up his sword to Rognus. Free and clear, with no explanation. And that's pretty much where we left off. The last thing that had happened in last week's session, Rognus, you had asked the direction to go, and the sword quickly and decisively pointed upstream and slightly down.
Okay. Upstream. So, just so, wait, upstream. On the map, did the river flow from south to north? Is that
It did.
or south to north? Okay, so upstream is south.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then that makes sense.
I don't think Delg is okay. Hey, Delg. You okay, bud?
I'll just like tilt my head and just like stare at you.
Yeah, this is very out of character for him.
Yeah. And you aren't going to be able to do anything about that until tomorrow?
I gotta sleep first. I
Okay.
wish I could do it right now, but I lack the energy to do so.
Perhaps we can just take shelter here then? Set up
Yeah.
camp.
I don't see that. Yeah, I don't think we have any other option. We're going to have to sleep here tonight.
Rognus, are you okay?
I'll be okay.
Okay. So, do we want to hide under the hand, stay out of the rain? What do you guys want to do?
Let's do that to start. And Cascade will move over to Delg and put out a hand to try and help guide him under for shelter and get them all sorted. She's gone full administrative, cross off all the boxes to get us set up for camp mode.
Gosh, I don't think I have a tent. Oh gosh. Okay.
No, I don't think any of us have a tent. Darkness,
I
that
did.
cloak of yours doesn't have a shelter of any kind on it, does it?
Unless we all want to get underneath the boat, but I don't think we'll be able to fit under that.
No.
Boat lean-to?
So, I'm correct. I don't understand what's being said.
You do not understand language. Your intelligence and wisdom are both 1. Or 0, I think. I can't remember. 1 or 0. 1.
Yeah.
I think it's
it-
one.
It's
One's
one, but you do know who your friends are.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I get that.
So yeah,
No.
Cascade's just gonna grab and pull you under, like, shelter to keep you dry, and start to do the things.
Yeah, I guess we'll just take shelter as much as we can under the hand here. I want to send Mistral a pie just to see if she can see like how far we have to travel. If she can see any fortresses or castles or
Okay. How far and in what direction? Or is it like a wide sweep of a circle? Like, describe what kind of a search pattern she's putting up.
upstream to the. Oh, actually, she can go farther. I don't have to be observing through her, so I'll just send her out up the river. And I'll have her go maybe 30 minutes out. Come back, so an hour will
Okay.
pass.
Could I get the perception check for her, which I think is
Yes.
still at advantage, right? There's nothing. Nothing takes
yeah,
that
as
away
long
from
as
her,
it's
right?
Sight or hearing? No.
Okay.
As long as it has to do with sight, hearing, or smell.
7.
And
Yeah,
hold on.
when she.
One more.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
22.
22.
Oh,
She comes back, and as she kind of comes up to you, she kind of has her head down a little bit, and kind of looks up and shakes her head no.
Okay.
Hey, Ragnas, is it okay if I pull you out for a chat really quick?
Sure.
Okay, I'll just try and move him away from the party, just a little bit, not too far. I mean, I genuinely want to make sure you're okay. There was a second there where I caught some hesitation when I was trying to help you out. Are you sure you're all right?
This is my fault.
Your fault. What do you mean by that? What, Delg is your fault?
Sorry, just so I'm clear, who's all around?
I pulled him off to talk to him, but if Varys would have heard it, I wouldn't have gone
Well,
far. So yeah,
okay,
he would have
so
heard. It's
unless
okay.
you're standing out in the rain far away, we're all in like a 10-foot area underneath his hand. So
Cascade's not paying attention. She's probably doing some like just sitting with Delg. She's not involved at all.
Okay, yeah, it's not that he minds. It's just that I just want to clarify, like, I guess it's just.
no,
The
I thought we
party's
were all
split.
huddling under the hand. So if you
Yeah.
guys went off somewhere else, then I'll.
No,
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that. But yes,
It's okay.
no, what happened to Doug is my fault. I was drawn to this place for whatever reason, and for whatever reason, this sword decided to, I don't know, come to me. It was forcibly given to me by this other fellow here, whoever he was, and I don't know what happened. I just know that he was very hesitant to come up here, and I wish I would have listened to him. I wish we all would have listened to him. I feel very responsible for what happened to him.
I don't think it's your fault or anyone's fault. We're all kind of we're all in this together, and anyone being pulled in any one direction, I would like to think that we're all going to stick together and help one another. And you know, Delg, he would do anything to help you or anyone else here. I mean, I'm gonna be able to heal him tomorrow. I wish I could right now. I just can't. But I don't think he's gonna place blame on you. I'm not putting words in his mouth right now, but I'm just saying. I don't think anyone would blame you for what happened here today.
Two things. First of all, there's a lot of strange things that go on in life, right? So, feelings, pulls, sometimes you have to listen to those things. And I can speak from experience, swords like that are very useful, especially when they choose you. We know this firsthand from Barovia. So, second thing,
He wasn't there,
Go ahead.
was he?
no. But
Go ahead.
second thing is, you could not have possibly known what that warlock was going to do to Delg. It's not your fault. And also you couldn't have prevented it from happening. So this is our journey. It's not your fault. It just happened.
Delg's okay. I mean, he's about as smart as this statue is, but he's gonna be okay. He's gonna be fine. I'm just glad that we're all here with one another and can protect him to make sure that he, regains his wits. So what does this sword that you have do?
It is a very wise sword. A very wise weapon.
That could come in handy.
Very much so. It feels like a compass, but a compass for answers.
That's really useful.
Sounds very familiar.
What did your sword do?
Well, I couldn't I couldn't necessarily ask it anything, but it would tell us where important things were. It also gave me advantage in combat, to where I seemed to know when things were starting to kind of kick off, and I would be able to act first. So I didn't have it for very long, though. As soon as it seemed like as soon as it completed its task, it kind of disappeared. It seemed like its task was to sort of lead us to the Sun Sword. So, but it was an interesting blade.
And it
Why? Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking out loud. Go ahead.
but it looked similar.
It looked similar, yes. Just it's almost like they were made by the same, like, bladesmith, or the same enchanter enchanted them, or something like that. It's like they're a part of the same family, brothers or cousins or something.
I guess the question now is, how have we been so lucky to find two of these incredibly useful weapons?
Well, that was kind of my point, is that it's probably not luck, is it?
At this point, I don't think so.
Which is kind of why I said that you shouldn't really think about anything of it as your fault. We were following you were following an influence that is meant to be, perhaps.
I hope
Anyway.
in the future it won't be at the sacrifice of others.
It's okay.
Hope's gonna fix him right up. He'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go get set up. I think we should get some rest and head out as early as possible. We need to spend as little time in this place as we can, I think.
I agree.
While that conversation is happening, Cascade would have been gotten Delg kind of sat down somewhere. She would have summoned herself a chair and sat down and very patiently folded an origami flower as she cast a spell and kind of offered it towards him. And just been very patiently sitting with him. And not... I think she would have tried to strike up idle conversation of just to gauge to his response, to try and understand more the condition that he was under. And just generally keep him company. You know, hey, I don't know if you can understand this. I don't know if you can appreciate this, but here's this. I can't imagine what you're experiencing right now. I'm sure it's very confusing, because I've not known you very long, but this doesn't quite seem like something that would be particularly fun for you. I'm familiar with what it's like to be around those who maybe aren't all there, and I'm sorry that this has happened, but it seems like you've surrounded yourself with people who can help you. So at least there's that. And she would just sit with him.
Pretty sure I would have just taken the flower and just stared at it the whole time. Just mesmerized at, like what you did with the origami.
If you all wanted to relax for a bit, I can take the first watch.
I'm happy to take the second or whatever is needed.
I'll take a watch. You can, if you can, just keep an eye out for Delk.
Am I smart enough to recognize the difference in each friend, or just know that they're friendly?
I would say each friend. Like, you know, like...
Because obviously, like, all the conversation happening, I can't remember the conversation because I don't understand what's being said. But I can understand that, like, initially, like, Hope, big, tall, fluffy one, was there. And then they all went away, and then...
Yeah.
Cascade came up, and then like afterwards, I would remember like each one of them. I just wouldn't remember like what was said or anything, right?
I mean, I have a feeling because of the ruling I made for this that the spirit of it is that the friend part of it means that you're drawn, like you have that bond that was there that's already been established, and that bond is different and stronger or weaker with different people. Right. So you could identify kind of which one is which.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I'll set up my area next to next to Delg, my buddy.
Okay. What's everyone else doing to set up camp?
Cascade would be moving around trying to shape water and like move it off of gear as possible, understanding that the shelter that we've procured for ourselves probably isn't adequate.
Yeah, this is straight up day one Survivor.
Yep. Yep.
Anyone else doing anything?
I have a blanket that I'll just go and wrap around Delg and then go resume my watch.
Okay. So Hope is taking the first watch. Who's taking the rest of them, and in what order?
Just one of you for 2 hours, and I'll take the second or the last 4 hours.
I'll take the second.
Yeah. Cascade would probably stay up for part of it, again, just to watch Delg and make sure that he didn't wander off or anything like that.
I
So
think
she would, whether that's first or second.
I think honestly, because it says that I'm able to protect, I think if possible, he's got last watch. I said I probably would try to be up with Varys.
First session or the last session of his watch?
I'm on the last session.
Right, but you have 2 watches, and for him to get a full rest, he can only be up for one half of yours.
I see. You should just wake up early then. You know what I mean? Like the last
take
2 hours.
the last session or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry, Cascade, you were with Hope or Rognus?
Let's do with Rognus.
Cool. As you bed down in a very damp and wet and oppressive environment, you start to question whether or not you're actually going to get a long rest. Whether sleep is going to come to you at all, whether you can ignore the elements and just try to get a few hours of shut-eye. Everyone sets themselves down to sleep as comfortably as they can, and Hope takes up the first watch. Please give me a perception check, and what would you like to do during your watch?
Let's get this over with first. 19 for perception. Oh God, I think Hope is gonna try and climb up in the hand and kind of just sit up there.
Okay.
Use that as a vantage point and kind of meditate in between roaming around the camp.
Okay. Looking out, you're kind of in a little pocket of the mountain. So without going down the coast a little bit in either direction, it's going to be hard for you to notice if anything's coming from the north or the northwest. But even with the rain, you still feel pretty confident that if there was something coming, you could scan the horizon and you could probably hear what was going to happen. Looking out at the river's flow seems to remain steady. There doesn't seem to be any sort of debris or anything going along the river. You've looked for, boats or travelers or anything. Can't see any of that. You can see across the river, but it is a very wide river at this point. So it's just kind of at the edge of what you can see. And again, there is no light here. So it's just kind of like a faded, very dark gray. Even without your night vision, you can see a little bit, but it's not very much. Enough to know that it's as the sun's setting, you can tell how far it is.
Okay.
As the DM stumbles back, forgetting that Hope doesn't have night vision or dark vision.
Yep.
But your watch passes relatively uneventfully. There is nothing of note that occurs.
Okay.
If you'd like to pass off to the next.
Yeah. Hey guys, there's not much going on. It's just creepy and gross out here. Okay, bye.
Cascade and Rognus, you wake up, and first and foremost, could I get a perception check from each of you? And secondly, what would you like to do on your watch?
look at them rolls. Cascade would again just be like attending to, watching over like the sleeping forms, making sure that if Delg wakes up and doesn't know where he is, or if there's any sort of kerfuffle, that she's available to kind of manage that. That would be her primary focus.
Okay. Mr. Rojnas?
At some point during the watch, realizing that Cascade has kind of woken up with me and is assumedly taking sort of half the area, and I'll take the other half. I'd actually kind of step out from the hand a little bit, and I won't make any. The actions and the what it appears that he's doing is not going to be hidden. He is taking the sword, and he's kind of getting used to it. You'll see him kind of, it's like a kid with the wrapping paper tube, and just kind of like,
Sure.
I don't know, some weird. With the rain, it makes it look cool, like some Highlander shit, but like it's just kind of, a couple times he'll stumble with it or whatever, but he's just gonna kind of just get used to the fighting aspect of the sword. But a few times in between, pretend parries and things like that, he'll be a little winded and look down at the sword. And it's kind of hanging down, but as he looks down at the sword, he is going to ask, where did the man who attacked us go?
This is a hard question to answer. The sword points up.
Like, straight up towards this guy?
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Lightning crashes down. Disappointing. He'll throw a couple, more swipes in frustration, and ask it once again. And Ragnus will know the name of this. Oh no, yeah, I have it in my notes. Just to confirm, and so that things are changing and everything like that. He just kind of wants to get a solid answer, so he'll ask again, which way is the fortress of Vanillon?
The sword points downriver.
He'll kind of nod in acceptance that thankfully the world hasn't shifted on him, and come back and kind of sit towards the hand.
As he strides back into camp, Cascade will just raise a brow. Are you all right, Ragnus?
I will be.
Fair enough. She'll continue our watch.
Cascade, gotta ask you a question about your backstory a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
How familiar are you with combat and weaponry?
I think she's used to being around other people.
Mm-hmm.
Being with like weapons and stuff. I don't think that she's personally very experienced, but it's something like she's used to being around weaponry.
Okay.
But not necessarily wielding it herself.
So it's safe to...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's safe to assume then that Cascade would have seen somebody doing kind of like a routine, like a exercise routine with weapons.
Yep.
So something strikes you about the way that Rognus is using this sword. So the sword it's a long sword. I mean, it's a pretty hefty blade with a pretty substantial hilt. Not quite big enough or long enough of a handle to use as a two-handed blade, but it's like right on the edge. He is moving this sword through the air like it weighs nothing. Like, you've never seen a long sword moved anywhere close to as swiftly and dexterously as this sword is moving. Even in, I believe I remember your character sheet, Rognus, you are not proficient in longswords, correct? So even in the hands of Rognus, who doesn't know how to wield this weapon, you can tell there's something like very special about the makeup of this weapon.
I think noticing that, after his comment, she would have said, you seem rather comfortable with that sword. I've not experienced someone with that level of skill with that particular blade.
Funny thing is, neither have I. Just kind of comes naturally, I guess.
Interesting. What a peculiar item it seems you found.
Well, just to be clear, this seemed to have found me. He says, begrudgingly.
Let's hope it's for a reason, Rognus, huh? And ideally a good one.
As the rain picks up, Cascade mostly focused on Delg, and Rognus focused on the sword and his thoughts. You are relatively unaware of your surroundings over the course of your watch. However, safely and without any incident, you make your way through your portion of the night's watch. I'd ask if there was... actually, no. Let's... if you guys want to do anything passing off the watch, you can. But your watch is over. It is now Varys' turn.
Muted. Anything going on? Anything strange? No?
Just the rain. I'm sorry that there's not more I can do.
I'm actually kind of surprised it's raining here.
Really?
Doesn't seem like a place that gets a lot of rain.
I suppose not.
All right, we'll get some sleep.
Varys, as you take up your watch, I'm going to take one perception roll for the whole thing.
Okay.
And I don't know if you want to have an RP moment with Delg, but Delg will wake up for the second half of it. And I'd like to know what you're doing for both halves. Both when Dog is awake and when Dog is not awake.
I guess for the part where Delg isn't awake, I would want to kind of remember back to the encounter and see if there's anything identifying about the warlock we encountered.
Sure.
Any ideas of where he came from, where he went, if I recognize his accent or something like that.
Yeah, I can give you a lot of this. I don't think this needs a roll. I mean, this is, I think, the first post-academy warlock you've really encountered, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like to me it would be safe to assume that
Father Donovich became a warlock.
Sure, but that was kind of a special circumstance. He went through the warlock boot camp. He got there real fast.
Yeah.
He was given a lot of
Crash
power
course.
very quickly. So I think it'd be safe to assume that Varys during that combat would be keenly aware, especially once the Eldritch Blast came out, of who this was, what this person was powerful enough to do, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I will give you I'll give you a lot of information about him. One, I don't think I mentioned this during the description.
Okay.
And I'm sorry if this would have changed any of the RP from last time, but he did have very small horns coming out of his head.
Okay.
He is not the same horns as Rognus, but you've seen tieflings before at the academy. He probably was a tiefling.
Okay.
His Eldritch Blast was far more powerful than yours.
Right.
And the things he did with Delg are beyond your comprehension. So you also would have put together, he is much stronger than you are. Like, much stronger than you are. On a scale from 1 to 20, if you were a 10, he would be a 17.
Out of 17, yeah.
Yeah. There was also... I'm gonna give you a 50-50 shot on this. Roll a d20.
Okay. Nope. Unless I was in the lower 50.
Should have called golf.
Yeah.
There was something about his, like, attitude, about his face, and like the way that he smiled, and like the little glint in his eye as he, like, made these sarcastic remarks to all of you. Something about it just unsettled you, and you can't quite put your finger on why.
Okay.
So, if that's what you're doing for the first part, Delg,
Yes.
you have now woken up.
I mean, I'm not gonna be doing much. I'm just chilling. I partially just wanted to still put forth the efforts of protecting the group, I guess, since that's one of the things that I was told I could do. And Varys is the one I had the link with the most, so that's who I would be more inclined to do a watch with.
Okay.
So
I'll
I
share
didn't
some
know-
rations with him. No bacon, but sorry, you don't have any bacon.
I don't know.
Maybe,
Even though my intelligence and charisma is lower, I still think that I would have a good, keen eye of enemies around.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't need to make the perception check. That's all I'd be doing, just watching for non-friendlies.
Yeah, I'm gonna take your passive perception for this one,
Yep.
and it is high enough to equalize out Varys's 9. Yeah, I mean,
No,
it's,
it was a 22. It was Mistral, so she's keeping a lookout up
Oh.
on the hand.
I did ask you for
22.
2 checks.
Oh, I'll do another one then. I'll roll for Varys this time.
Sure.
And that's 23.
Cool. So I know that this normally happens for you, Varys, because you always take up the last part of the watch, but legitimately with those high rolls, you would have seen this. On the horizon, just as your watch is coming to an end, and you have dark vision and you have devil sight, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you see farther than most. You can make out clearly on the other side of the bank that there are a number of like creatures. You can't make out quite what they are, but there's some sort of movement. They don't seem to be intelligent. They seem to be like the abyssal equivalent of like deer grazing along a river. And at first you're like, is that something I need to be concerned about? Because I don't know what kind of creatures exist here. But they pay you no attention whatsoever. You're across a giant river. And as you kind of start scanning the coast of the... Is it called a coast? Bank. The bank of the river. God, I can't... My God. As you start scanning the bank of the river now, noticing that there were creatures here where you've not seen creatures ever since you got here. Looking up river very far, at the edge of your sight, you can see a single boat. lazily drifting down the river towards you. As your watch comes to an end, dawn arrives. Everyone gets a long rest. Enjoy your spell slots.
Oh, thank God.
Whew, all 2 of them. Yeah.
Hashtag warlocks.
I would like to say that as soon as I wake up, I not only realize where I am, I turn over, look at Delg, not even like saying anything. I just rustle through my bag, find the little pouch of the diamond dust. I'll kind of scooch closer to him and say, I'm really sorry I couldn't do this any sooner. And I'll put some on his head and on his shoulders, and cast Greater Restoration on him.
The diamond dust that is coating his skin, you watch as Del kind of looks up at you and smiles. And just has this kind of goofy looking grin on his face. And the dust glinting off of the sun as it's rising, you can see it kind of like settling into his pores and slowly being absorbed by his skin. And as it does, the expression on Delg's face shifts from that kind of goofy, mindless, hi, your friend grin to one of recognition. Delg, you are no longer feeble-minded.
Yes.
Hey, buddy.
I guess I'll like just kind of look around a little bit, remembering what happened to me, but like nothing in between really, just kind of like remembering people around that I recognized. I honestly think that I would kind of like keep to myself for a little bit, trying to like parse like what exactly happened and be a little upset at myself because I let it happen. And I'll look back at Hope and kind of knowing, putting everything together that she healed me. I'll stand up and I'll give her a hug and say thank you, and gather my things and just be like, we should probably be on our way.
Take it easy for a little bit, okay? I mean, it's not like we're rushing, but you kind of just had a bit of a traumatic experience, so we're on your pace today, okay?
In the rushing category, there is a boat coming down the river.
A boat?
Yes.
Okay. Does it look bad? Does it...
It didn't look good or bad, just looked like a boat, but we should gather our things and maybe head over there to see if maybe we can catch a ride.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm not making breakfast today, guys. Rations for now.
Gather up belongings, head toward the riverbank.
The boat is approaching. It's closer than it was before. Ferris.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Come on, guys,
Cascade.
let's go.
Yeah, Cascade would just be attending, again, trying to be helpful where there needs help. If somebody's trying to pull something together, just lending a hand wherever it's needed and moving without complaint from task to task, getting them ready.
As gathering the things and helping as well, I would try, because I feel like I remember the non-remembering things, so like I couldn't tell who was who, but like you said, there was like a link, and I would try to see if like I could remember like who was who with the links I had. Also going back further, if there was anything that I remember about Dorian that would ping in my head of I've heard of this guy or I've heard about someone like this guy before as well. Just basically all of it to myself in my head.
All right. So Here is what you remember from your feeble-mindedness. Because we're kind of going on the emotional and safe connection with people, you remember who cared for you and how much time you spent with everybody. That's about it. As far as for Dorian, let's make it a history check.
How does a Nat 20 sound?
Nat 20 sounds
25.
good. 25 total.
Holy shit.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you went to the academy with Varys, who was a warlock. You were friends with Varys at the academy, who was a warlock. He studied classes with warlocks. You know what a warlock looks like. This is definitely a warlock. This is a very powerful warlock. This is a warlock beyond any of the teachers you had seen at the academy. Also, carbon copy everything I said to Varys.
Right.
However, there was nothing about his face that tickled your attention.
Okay.
Now that the light has broken onto this landscape, and now that you have finally found your way to a riverbank, which Ceylon has been trying to get you to this whole time, you get your first real glimpse at the river. This particular part of the river seems to be an unbroken shore where the water has, over time, eroded out a little tiny inlet to the beach where you are currently camping. The rest of the river, however, looking north, or looking upstream and downstream, the edges, as it gets closer to the bank, are just riddled with rocks and odd structures seemingly coming out of nowhere along the bank to about 20 to 30 feet out into the river. The center of the river itself looks exactly like you expect a river to look. And again, the boat is getting closer. There seems to be a single figure in a cloak who is at the head with an oar.
Will we just be getting on this boat with this stranger in the same way that we just went through this portal because a stranger mentioned it, or are we going to be making our own way?
I think I think we have the knowledge that the place we're looking for is along the river, so I think that part of it is not quite as much of a chance, but the person that's guiding the boat, maybe talk with them first. They might not want to take us anywhere.
You all have a very interesting way of interacting with complete strangers.
I mean, sometimes you can make friends with those strangers. Sometimes they can be allies. And at the very least, you can determine whether or not they have good intentions.
Also, we need to go upriver. He's got a boat. Why not talk to him?
I completely understand. I've just never experienced such a optimistic group before. It surely has worked out in my advantage. I hope you don't think I'm complaining. I just find it to be rather refreshing.
I'm gonna try to flag down the boat.
While they're having this discussion in my head, Ragnus is going to think towards the sword. How can we get to the fortress, the Fortress of Vanillon.
The sword points immediately to the boat.
Point at the boat. Point at the boat. All right.
I mean, if everybody, I'll be thinking it, but while they're having this discussion, we'll just kind of see the sword go up towards the boat, and I'm just gonna kind of be looking at them like, I think this is the way to go.
I look at Cascade. See?
A mysterious sword handed to us by a combatant in a place that we were sent by another mysterious figure that we know nothing about. Yes, it all seems rather connected.
Hey, I'm right here. I'm not a mysterious figure that brought you guys here.
I'm not talking about you, Ceylon. I'm talking about the woman.
Oh. That was a woman?
I believe so. Wasn't that something that you all mentioned? I couldn't make her out myself.
I was
looked
hiding
like
in a bush.
woman.
It looked. It
Yes, Ceylon.
it
I
definitely
remember.
looked like a woman.
Could you recognize her?
That's a good question. Did I recognize the cloaked figure's face when I saw it?
Think we did this last week? And no.
Yes.
Pretty sure.
Maybe
I
we
thought
did.
you said
yeah,
we-
we did.
I think when you looked, you got that she was a woman.
Right. Okay.
Important to note, Varys, what are you doing to flag the boat down?
Waving my hands and
How far away is the boat?
saying, "Come over here."
It's still upriver from you. It's at a distance, but it's close enough that a normal person would be able to see. It's also broad daylight.
Kind of come over here.
So like 100, 150 feet away from you guys. The boat does not seem to be responding, though.
I didn't mean to do that.
I mean, I can shoot a couple Eldritch blasts up in the air if you want.
Well, we gotta make sure that this is our boat. Is there a pink mustache on the front?
Hard to tell.
You can make out a few more details as he's close now when you mention the pink mustache. Which oddly in canon, Rognus could actually know.
which is so good.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah.
You notice
These weird silver chariots with pink mustaches on them. You could just flag one down on some weird tablet thing. Cool.
So you can make out that there's like this almost glowing quality to the ore that he's using to row. It's doesn't look like an ore.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, anybody got any ideas about how to flag a boatman down?
Did we just ask?
I'll walk up to Chum and be like, I
Who?
can try. And as you look at him, you can see like a
Or
little
bears.
vine start coming out of his like hand area.
Oh,
I
God.
don't. I don't think we should do that. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but I mean,
Get over here.
we've talked about the river Styx before, right? We talked about that already.
I think so. Here, Hope will just reach down on the ground and pick up a couple rocks, cast light on them, and just huck them out into the river. Hello, excuse me. Hi, I'm sorry. This is weird.
The boat is in the center of the river, going along, and does not seem to be turning in your direction. The ferryman does not seem to be looking at you.
Okay, I have an idea,
Oh no.
but I look at Hope.
Oh no.
It's gonna require that I touch something. Is that okay?
Hang on. Let me get closer to you. Hang on. Okay. God.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Well, I'm gonna put my hand in the river and think that I would like to talk to the boatman.
It's just so gross. Okay. I mean, if you really want to.
I mean, it's worth a try. I stick my hand in the water and kind of like will the boatman to come over and talk to me.
As you do that, his head turns toward you, but the boat is still going in the same direction.
We could really use a ride to Vanillon, please.
Maybe you have to pay him.
Okay. I'll put a gold piece in my hand and put it in the river and think that I need a ride.
Define put it in the river.
I would have it in my hand and put my hand in the river.
As you put the hand down into the river and the water comes over your palm, you watch the hand get like harder to see as you put it down further. And as you bring your hand up, the coin is no longer there, and the boat seems to be steering in your direction.
Good idea, Delg. Let me mark off a gold piece.
You've got a couple to spare.
I think everybody does,
Yeah.
except for Cascade.
All right.
Oh.
Let's make a deal.
Mm.
As he gets closer, let me show you what he now looks like, that you can see him.
I don't want it.
I'm scared.
What had looked like a cloak before seems to be kind of this shimmering energy that goes around his whole body. And as he gets closer, you start to see more of the features. You start to see his long, white, flowing hair that seems to be moving in a breeze that doesn't exist. You make out that the ore is made from bones. And you see his gaunt skeletal face as he comes close.
Oh my god.
Congratulations, he looks like death.
Cascade, it looks like you guys go to the same hairstylist.
Did you get this off a Meatloaf cover?
I don't think so. But it looks like it.
Iron Maiden.
Maiden.
Iron Maiden cover, yeah.
Damn.
Okay.
Yeah. The boat comes close and goes right alongside the coastline, the bank, and like deftly kind of shifts to the side right in front of you, Varys.
Okay. I think everyone probably has to pay, but I could be wrong about that. I look at the figure and say, I seek passage to... It's Vanillon, right? That's the name of it?
Yes, that's the name.
All right. Seek passage to Vanillon.
He holds his hand up very slowly without moving his gaze from your face.
To me?
Mm-hmm.
But I already paid. All right. I'll give another gold piece and put it in his hand.
As the second it touches his hand, it dissolves in a puff of smoke.
Okay.
His hand goes down, and he looks back straight.
I get on the boat.
As soon as you step foot on the boat, it starts leaving.
Nope. No, wait.
Crap.
I'm just
Cascade will move quickly, fumbling like at gold at her pouch and striding confidently, and will do the same thing that he did, where she puts her hand in and out loud say, "I'm seek passage by the river Styx."
Yep. As soon as your hand goes into the water with the coin, it starts to dissolve, and the boat comes to a stop. And he turns around, looking towards you,
with
and
that
puts his
done.
hand out.
She'll turn and look at the rest of the party. I suggest that you all have your payment ready as well.
Mm-hmm.
Seems that
Yeah.
this is our out.
Get your tickets in hand, okay?
Get
Make
your
sure
fast
that you-
passes.
Run at the platform just at the right angle, because if you don't,
it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, Hope will take a gold piece and put her hand into the river.
Okay. Well,
Disappears.
yeah, Rhinus is following suit.
Okay. Delg.
I'll get out a gold piece and I'll hand it to Cyan, and have him do it, and then I'll do the same as well. Except Varys asked to go to
Vanillon.
I will ask him if he can take me to Waterdeep, because I remember that they can transport people to different realms.
Oh shit.
That is the fact I gave you. It's true. Ceylon thanks you. Didn't look like he was like doing the whole like, did I leave my wallet at home? Do I have?
Where's my pouch of gold?
So he just, oh, thank you, and takes the coin from you, and like as he puts it into the water, like holds his hand out again. Do you give him the second coin or no?
Yes, I do give him the second coin.
Okay. So yeah, you've all taken your coins. You've all got onto the boat, and as the last of you puts the coin into Charon's hand, the boat starts to lazily drift back into the center of the river.
So we're going to Vanillon, right? Delg, are you being taken somewhere else?
I don't know. I mean, last I remember about this, they can take us in between realms, so why would we go to Vanillon if we can go right to where we need to go?
You might have said it before we all said we wanted to go somewhere else. So you're end up somewhere else, and we're gonna end up somewhere else.
I feel like they drop us off, so if like I get off, then you can get off.
But what about Ceylon and his friends? Were we not committed to that cause?
I'm guessing that it would take us to the doorway to get us to Waterdeep.
Cascade will turn and look at the boatman. Will this take us to the gateway?
He does not respond.
He does not seem inclined to answer.
He doesn't seem inclined to communicate other than with his hand. I'm just curious because I don't know 100%, but it's worth a shot.
Wait, sorry. Did you ask Ceylon or Charon?
The boatman.
Okay.
Yeah. To be clear, Cascade is only going to be snarky as fuck to Ceylon. If that's not been well established, I would like to put that out now. Can we talk about what happened last night?
Of course.
Well, I mean, there was a ritual that seemed summoning in nature that seemingly just ended upon the whims of this individual who seemingly can just disappear. We were called there, summoned there, and she'll nod towards the sword that Ragnas has, by a magic item across planes on an infinite staircase of planes.
I don't think that he was called there cross planes. I don't think he actually had the pull until we were actually in the abyss, because he didn't start acting odd until after the portal was opened.
Well, given
that's when he was called. And then as for the guy disappearing, I mean, I can do that. I mean, I've heard of like even our higher, more knowledgeable clerics being able to do that as well. And I mean, they talked about it over at Nowhere Inn, people being able to teleport or plane jump. So I mean, he seemed very powerful.
Context matters.
So
Sure,
I
but
think
the context of it all.
I think his arriving there, the warlock being there, was more a function of him being guided by the sword to deliver it to someone, i.e., Rognus. Right? He obviously is not from here. He left, right? So I don't
You
know.
all
These
seem
types...
rather calm about this. A stranger with the ability to leave at will brought a magical item to one of your party members, seemingly from wherever he came from, to a summoning ritual which we still don't know the ends. And this seems rather... You all seem very devil may care about this interaction.
That's actually not true. Those creatures were summoning something in the name of Morningstar. That is not something that is careless to Delgarai.
You know the name.
Yes.
What does
Angelo
it mean to you?
Morningstar. Angelo Morningstar tricked us into going to Barovia.
Not really tricked.
No, he tricked us, Delg. He sent us there under false pretenses. He served us up to Strahd.
Right, but I mean, honestly, we were there to help Aurelia, and we did do that. So, I mean, technically, it may have been under false pretense, but we did do what we were asked.
That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the man sent us there to be Strahd's playthings. For whatever reason, which I will find out.
See, I think when it comes down to it,
anything?
Go ahead, Doug. I'll answer in a minute.
The way I look at it is, he was summoning something in the name of Morningstar. It didn't get summoned. We stopped it, in my eyes, and he is gone. There's nothing we can do about it, and we need to press forward to find more answers. Unless you have some secret answering powers hidden away, we can't dwell on it, and we have to keep continuing what we can do. You can't dwell on something we can't change. So we push forward until we can find something else out instead. We take what we got and go.
I don't think the warlock was attached to Morningstar. He would not give a weapon like that away.
I don't think he had a choice.
To someone in our party. I still don't think that makes any sense, but that's just me.
You didn't have any choice of losing your weapon when you had it, right?
It just disappeared.
Right. So, and I'm sure it went to somebody else.
Okay, so Doug, do you think Angelo Morningstar sent that warlock here to give Rognus a sword?
No, but it doesn't mean he's not working for him.
That kind of doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Cascade, you have to understand that we've spent the four of us have spent a fair deal of time together, attempting to leave the land of Barovia and being caught in so many different strange paths, seeing so many different odd things that I don't think a summoning ritual and a destined sword really phase us anymore. If you would have presented this opportunity, at least in front of me, 6 months ago, this would have felt like a different plane altogether. And now it's just more of opportunity for us to question why it's happening, but not hold too much interest in the here and now. We're continuing to move forward. I'm just as curious as the next person as to why we have two swords have found our party at this point. Two very powerful swords, and nothing makes sense anymore, honestly. So it's more of a defense mechanism to just continue moving than to sit and question every little detail.
I hope that I'm not misunderstood. I don't. My suggestion isn't that we sit and question. More that there is a larger pattern here. I've spent very little time with you, and yet, she gestures to Hope, there's a chosen one of her kind, one sought out by a magical item across planes, and two sent to an unknown plane by someone who would then institute summoning rituals. There's something much larger than all of us, and I'm quite frankly concerned as to what that might be. Rognus, you felt pulled to that place. That sword didn't necessarily find you. You felt pulled to it as well.
I suppose it was the sword and not anything else, but
there are a lot of questions here. I wanted to return home to Waterdeep, and yet I find myself increasingly surrounded with questions that just pool and swirl around each of you. And yet you move without considering. I find it quite interesting.
Or we are considering, just not out loud.
Fair enough, Delg. Fair enough.
Oh, please don't mistake our drive forward as flippant or uncalculated.
Of course not. You're all very capable.
But yes, there this Morningstar web is intricate. The people at the Nowhere Inn told us that he's been, well, I guess the librarian at the Nowhere Inn told us that he has been sighted on various different planes, influencing various different things.
Demiplanes, right?
Things.
They specifically
planes,
said
demiplanes. He's appeared all over the place. Point is, he is up to something, and he used us as pawns. So there's a little tinge of revenge there, but also intense curiosity about what he is up to. Now even more so.
Yes, I do find myself very curious about all of this as well. And none of you recognized the woman, this man with the sword. This is all coming from nowhere.
No. These sentient blades are a curious thing, though.
In this moment, I do think that Cascade would try to, thinking of the ritual, and kind of hearing Hope when she called out what they were summoning, or the chant that they were summoning in Celestial, she would try to think back on her own studies of what they could have possibly been trying to, like, if there were any indication of what they were attempting to do. Like, there were the things in the water, but trying to piece together if that was that they were the intended objects, or if that was a part of it, finishing the ritual, or whatever.
Okay. Do you want to focus more on like the history of you hearing of other groups doing this, or do you want to focus on knowledge of the actual act of summoning itself?
The actual act of summoning itself, I think she would be more interested in the arcane, like, aspect of it.
Sure. So yeah, Arcana check.
Okay. A 20, dirty 20.
So, I mean, you've seen summoning rituals performed before. This one was a little weird. Normally, it's a kind of one and done thing, where whatever is being summoned, like there's obviously effects and there's obviously a process, like opening, like building some sort of gateway, and then going through the ritual and going through the arcane process and invoking different energies that causes the portal to change, and then something pops through. The fact that there were things already there that were seemingly coming closer, you do not think this was a ritual to summon something that wasn't already there. And if that didn't answer your question, please ask follow-ups, and I'll try to answer your follow-ups.
So maybe it wasn't necessarily a summoning ritual so much as it was a
beckoning call.
Not even like it was. Yeah.
Dinner time.
Like it was more like a.
More like a
like
beacon.
It was readying this space. Yeah. Like. Okay. Yep. Okay. Cascade would just be thinking that she would. I don't know that she would necessarily share that though, as she was talking and questioning everybody to try and figure out. Cascade finds herself seemingly amongst a bunch of chosen ones, and that's kind of just like right now.
Varys was offered a lot of money to do this, so that's why he's here.
Could have been more. Could have been more. He didn't know to negotiate.
It really wasn't a lot.
Everything that we got out of there, right?
Yeah, but that we didn't know what that was going to be.
As conversations dies down, I'd be like looking at the coast.
Yeah. So as the conversation dies down, you've been on the river now for between 3 and 4 hours. The landscape has changed, but it's pretty much remained the same. It's a lot of hills, there's mountains, there's a barren landscape devoid of vegetation except for right along the bank. As you look out further and further through the kind of plains and valleys that you can see in the distance, it looks like the vegetation is, as you had recognized before, kind of centered around where the water is. The river itself starts to go into an area that is mostly covered on both sides by mountains, almost as if you're going into a canyon. And the walls start to slowly get higher and higher on both sides of you. There is now no bank on either side as the boat travels and marches endlessly onward. The river itself starts to dip to the left and lazily come back to the right and start to snake through this mountain area. And after about a half an hour of going through this part of the river Styx, let me bring you back over to the map. It eventually comes out to where your token is now. And in the distance, right here, where the map says Vanillon would be, you see on a medium to large sized kind of rocky outcropping, high above what looks like the outward battlements of a fortress. Sorry, give me 1 second.
It seems that there's a fortress approaching.
We going against current?
No.
It was flowing
Yes.
that way.
No, we are.
Yes, we are.
No, we
going-
are. We are.
We're told
we
from
are.
the south to the east.
Yep, because the sword pointed upriver.
I think it's safe to say that this river is highly unnatural.
Oh, we know it's the river Styx, right? I mean,
It feels a little silly to call it a river at all, to be honest.
Is that even water? Is that blood? Is it dirt?
I mean,
mixed
you
with-
you
I don't know.
you touched it. What do you think?
I
It
don't
doesn't
know.
respond to my magic, so I've never met a water I didn't like.
As the boat drifts closer, Varys, you're the first to see it with your unbelievably good vision. In the center of this encampment, where you can see these very routinely built fortress walls with a tower on a couple corners and then a big tower in one corner. You see in the center of it what appears to be a grand-looking castle. And the reason that it is visible to you at this point is because it is not made of the same material. In fact, there seems to be kind of this glint of a lustery sheen as the sun beats onto the sides of it. It kind of catches reflections and almost like the iris flare from a camera. It's happening with your eyes. Whatever material this castle was made from does not look like anything you've seen in the Abyss.
Well, that's unusual.
It doesn't look like the Porta Fortress that we found, does it?
The Porta Fortress? Oh, yeah. It does not.
Okay.
Decidedly larger.
A couple Porta Fortresses together.
Fair.
Does it look like it was made somewhere else and then transported here? Does it look that foreign?
From this distance, you can't tell. It's still a couple miles away.
Okay.
I mean, rolling down the river.
Yep. As the boat goes further down the river, it enters into another canyon with rocky cliffs on both sides. The fort and the castle in the distance itself goes behind the mountains and is now no longer in your view as you head down the river, which is seemingly leading right there. And we're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back as you come out of the mountain to see what's on the other side. So, folks, hang tight. Chat, I am going to take the stream offline and then back online very quickly. So don't go anywhere, even if the stream stops. We're all going to get up. We're going to stretch. We're going to have a little bathroom break, get some water. We encourage you to do the same, and we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes.
Water.